Patrick Watson, welcome to eTown. Good to have you here finally.
Very, very happy to be here.
Yeah, man. It must be so exciting to be a Canadian person right now, knowing that there's soon going to be royal family is coming back, and of course in Montreal especially, that must be very popular.
Yes, very popular in Montreal. They love the Royals.
Yeah. But you grew up in Montreal, right?
I grew up in a small town, a little bit outside of Montreal. I used to, like 45 minutes, like a really small little town.
Yeah. Was it a predominantly French-speaking town?
Actually, it's kind of there's pockets of like Anglos, as we call like English-speaking communities, and it would definitely be more of an English-speaking community with a smaller Francophone community.
Yeah.
But definitely a lot of French people as well, but definitely more from an Anglophone, we would say.
But tu parles français.
I speak French fluently, and like in grade 1, I'd asked my parents to switch me to French school, which I don't know why, and I showed up to French school not speaking any French.
But
so I
learned quick.
I learned, well, you kind of, if you don't, you get beaten up, so you learn real damn quick. And then back in those days, there was a thing where they wanted to separate Quebec, and if you're an Anglophone in a French community, it was like you learn how to speak French quick.
Yeah.
It was one of those things.
Ancient tensions, but it's a beautiful city, Montreal. We love Montreal.
Yeah, it's...
What's your average day like when you wake up? I know you said that you came back from tour one time and your family had left, moved out. So I'm sort of envisioning some space.
No,
around you.
Obviously I have my kids, but we do have part. So like when I have the kids, I have like 2 different schedules. So when I have the kids, I'm like dad time.
Yeah.
So like I cook dinner and make all the crazy stuff, and then I wake up at like 7, and it's like war to get my kids to school on time. Like, and then we run to go get to school, and then I just go make noise till like 5 in the afternoon.
In your apartment or in your
my
house?
studio or with the guys, and I like to write all the time, so I'm always working. Sorry, and then I pick up the kids, and then I try to be a good dad, and then when I don't have my kids, I just work from 9 in the morning till 4 in the morning, and I'm just a strange person.
But you've maintained some friendships.
Yeah.
Despite that crazy schedule.
I got lots of great friends. I mean, all of us, we spend a lot of time. I mean, the music we make, it's always outside of formula, so it takes enormous amounts of time to find a new formula each time we do a record. So all the guys, we spend like loads of times trying to rediscover how we'd play a song. So, there's a lot of work that goes into these kind of tunes for us.
Yeah. I mean, you started out playing more music for art installations or theatrical pieces and things like that, right?
Yeah.
Happenings?
I wasn't really a gifted songwriter from the get-go. I liked really symphonic music. I was like a big fan of Debussy, and we all studied jazz together, and we were all jazz players. And slowly, as I got older, I just liked the song more and more, funny enough, and it kind of grew on me. And I didn't know if I liked singing that much. I like instrumental music a lot. And when I first started, my voice was very instrumental, and I wasn't necessarily a lyricist yet. And then slowly I realized I was going to sing, I better learn how to write words. So then I started spending enormous amounts of time trying to learn how to read. No, I'm joking.
In English, yeah. But when you say your voice was more of an instrument, do you mean you were just sort of vocalizing, improvising vocal sounds?
I got high falsetto too, so I can kind of go, woo, all that la-di-da-di stuff. And then, funny enough, for the last record, I broke my voice, like really badly, and then I had to sing low for a tour. And then people were like, wow, I love how you're singing. And I'm like, oh. Maybe it wasn't such a good idea to sing like that.
Well, there is a thing about that high falsetto. It's funny because it seems like, I don't know whether Prince started the trend or whatever, but it's between Dallas Green and Bon Iver and Devendra Banhart and all these. There's lots of contemporary.
The Castratos, high tenor voices has always been a very.
I was hoping you wouldn't mention the Castratos.
I know. I just had to get you in there. But I'm a big fan of, to be honest, like when I look at music, I look at music from like a 2,000-year perspective.
Yeah.
I'm not really good at like popular culture necessarily. I like looking at like, the grand sweep of the arcs and stuff like that. And falsetto has been like a huge integral part of male singers since the very beginning. And high tenor voices has always been kind of an interesting thing.
Yeah, it's good in bluegrass too.
Yeah, absolutely. In all forms of music, so...
Well, let me ask you, and speaking of the sort of interest in classical and Debussy and instrumental music and the 2,000-year thing and not really being connected to popular culture, there's one little chapter in your story that's confused me a little, and that is the time that you were on the road opening for James Brown.
Yeah, pretty weird.
What was that all about, and how did that happen?
I actually don't know what it was about. I'm still trying to figure that out. We were very lucky. We had actually never even really toured that much at the time when we got on the road. The first show I had to do alone before the guys came, and it was like 7,000 people in Paris, and I think I had played for maybe maximum like 200 or 400 people, and it's like French Parisians, and if you speak wrong in French on stage, they'll correct you, and it's an awful experience when you're on stage. You're like, they'll be like, "No, tu peux pas dire ça." They would say like, "No, you can't say that." I'm like, "Well, you know what? I just did, and you can't stop me." You know, like, and then actually, so I wasn't very good at it the first time. I just kind of put my heart in my sleeve, and I said that's probably the best I can do in this scenario, and as I toured with them, I actually sat there and learned how to be a front man. It was kind of like schooling. And the one thing I liked and I had in common, if we had anything in common, is I grew up singing music in a church. And I'm not to say that, well, religion's like a whole other topic, but the idea of music being a sacred and kind of a moment where people have a special moment. And I think for him, before he would go on stage, they would do this big prayer. And regardless of religion, once again, I'd say just the idea of like coming on stage with a sacred idea was very important to him, and it was very important to me. And what I realized was when he got on stage, even though he was like, "I'm James Brown," he's very humble. I know you would think he's like a very egotistical frontman, but really how it works is he's got his two hands to his sides. And he's actually gauging the audience's presence for when he calls a section. So he goes up there and he just listens to the audience. He gives them something, they throw it back. He goes, "They're not throwing back the way I want, so I'm going to keep here. I'm going to stay here." And his band's watching his fingers. And as soon as he felt that the audience has reached that pinnacle moment to reach the next level, he'll go like this. And the band would have like literally 2 beats to go to the chorus of the verse. And it's not really him directing the audience. It's actually like a conversation between the singer and the audience. It's not going up there telling you how to feel. You guys are having a conversation. And I really appreciated that way of putting on a show. And it's actually a very humble way of putting on a show. Instead of going up there and like, "I'm this and you will do that." Even though you would think he would be like that, it actually really wasn't. And
That's so cool.
I thought that was magical.
Really cool insight. Was he touring with his new blonde wife that he met in Vegas, who was formerly the Janis Joplin cover band person?
She was awesome. I will say that whole band we were young people, and I don't even know if we were good or not. And you open up for legends and lots of musicians who are famous, and they will treat you totally terribly, and like you're the opening band. We walked in there, and every one of those people on band treated us with so much respect and so cool with us, including like James Brown, including his wife, even though she's a totally colorfully strange person. Fine. But they had such a class, and they would show up to the gig in a suit, and they would leave the suit in the gig. There was so much class in that, in the way they approached the stage, in the way they approached us, that I ever since then, like you'd walk and you tour with like people who thought they were like really cool, and they come in and like, "I'm so cool," and you're like, "Well, listen, if James Brown's not that cool, you're definitely not that cool." So, and I thought like there was a real class and humility, and just they were just so sweet, and it's just like, all right, that was like that. From then on, that was the bar, and I think it was a really lucky thing to be able to do at that age.
It's amazing, amazing. In case you just tuned in, you're listening to eTown here with Patrick Watson. I want to ask you a couple things. One, we have a great curiosity about Canadians in general. Well, primarily it's just your healthcare that we're really puzzled by. But I noticed on the back of your record you list an organization called Factor as one of the, you thank them for the support. And it reminded me that the Canadian government has for a long time, through various agencies and devices, supported musicians and in various ways. And it's so cool. There isn't anything like that here. And I wonder if has it been pretty helpful for you?
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of different thoughts about it, and I think absolutely has been helpful for loads of bands that get started and like allows us to tour and like try to get territories that like our music, and absolutely is the most helpful thing. But then like I'll come to America and they'll come to these like, okay, let's say it's like just these small little towns where it's these like pockets of like magic, like this town that seems like that, where like you have this like community center, and obviously people are very supportive, and you work as a community, which is a similar way. It's a bit more of a private way of doing it, but there's a charm about that as much as there's a charm about a government doing it. You know what I mean? And it's different, but absolutely for like, if you see the film world, like Quebec is like this big. There's like I don't know, like I don't know how many million people, like 6 or 5 million. And like Denis Villeneuve, we did the Blade Runner films. You have the guys who did the Little Secrets. It's another French, these amazing directors, amazing musicians. So obviously the support definitely does something.
It primes the pump, for sure. Lots of your songs have actually been in films and television shows and commercials for various products that you may or may not endorse.
There is rules about it.
Yeah.
like you don't do like you try to make ethical decisions that are not. I mean, you have to make a living. There's like making a living in a tough world of music. It's not like before you sell 1 billion records or something like this. Right. And then, but at the same time, we try to make a living that kind of holds without hypocrisy. There's a level of hypocrisy as well. When you're making these it's very complex. Like obviously, if McDonald's calls, I'm going to say no. Like there's like obvious no's, and they've offered like lump sums of money, and it's a downright no. And then there's some like, okay, Tropicana orange juice, and it's orange juice, and I drink the orange juice, and then that like Pepsi owned. I didn't even know Pepsi owned it, and I just thought it was orange juice. So I did the commercial because I was like, I drink orange juice. And then this guy's like, man, you know that's Pepsi. And I'm like, I actually didn't know it was Pepsi. I apologize. I just thought it was orange juice with pulp.
So there's a filter.
There's a filter. I absolutely do my best, but at the same time, trying to like, we all have families, and we try to. There's a balance that we have to do. Even in films, it's also the content of the commercial is really important.
Yeah.
So I always ask for like, what's you're actually gonna see?
That's interesting. But I mean, it's also it's an incredibly serendipitous experience for a songwriter and a musician to have your songs chosen for film and television and commercials, because it's a revenue stream that's sort of like the last revenue stream that still exists.
Yeah, it's tricky to get rid of it.
And not a lot of musicians have access to it. So congratulations on that. Lastly, before we get back to music, title song. The idea of the wave as a force that you can either work with or work against. I'm assuming that's part of what went into the theme of it's the title song of your record. I'm just guessing that's sort of what you're working with there.
I think what happened was like you get like at least a bunch of enormous changes that were like big changes that totally change all the ideas you would have about life. And the wave was so big that if you try to swim in a wave, you're going to drown. If you ever go to the ocean, once you get caught like in a big wave, like you just have to let it do its thing. And then when it's done with you, you swim. And if you try to swim while it's got you, you're just going to drown because you're going to run out of energy. And I feel like the album was written when I was like inside the wave, and I was like, well, if I swim, it's not going to work. So I was like getting thrown away by the wave. I was like, oh, this kind of hurts, but this is kind of fun. And in that moment of like just letting my body go and kind of surrendering to being like, oh, I don't actually know where I'm going to land, I just kind of got comfortable there and just wrote all the songs for me, with the songs I did write, in that kind of pocket of a moment where I was just kind of like surrendered to what's going to happen.
Yeah, and I want to just put a sort of a finer point on surrender, because on the one hand,
it's not giving up.
That's right. I just wanted
absolutely
to say
not giving up, and it's not a pessimistic record whatsoever.
Yeah,
I guess surrender is the wrong way. I think it's just like giving in to what's going to happen, and there's sometimes you got to do that.
Yeah, and I think we are, probably divided up into different groups. Not everybody's the same, obviously, but some people are really change averse just because it makes them uncomfortable, and some people recognize through experience that change, however hard it is almost always good. It's almost always a step in the right direction.
Yeah, it's always a step in a direction anyways.
Yeah.
And it's really, do you know what I mean? And that direction is whether you're going to make that direction good or not. And I think that's when you do let it take you where it's going and you don't try to fight it, you have a lot better chances of making that direction a better direction than a bad direction. And
in the process, you clear out a little baggage of what your preconceived notion is. In your case, maybe literally clearing out your house.
I had a lot of ideas about like what a family should be, and like about parents being together. And I mean, 2 years after you get used to a new thing, I was like, wow, this is like pretty good. I mean, it's not really what I thought from the 80s movies, but I'm kind of digging it, it's kind of stuff like that, and you just kind of, you get a new thing, you're like, wow, I really like this, and I was terrified of it,
Well, it's a really good record, and it's a really listenable record. I like the fact that it's, and I don't mean to, I'm sure this may not sound right, but it's accessible, and it's got a kind of, a complexity and a tenderness at the same time that makes it something I reach for. You reach for records for different emotional reasons, and this is one that I've enjoyed listening to.
Well, that's very, very nice of you. Thank you for that.
All right, well, I'm just kissing ass because you're the guest, and I know. I'm trying to make you feel good.
I do feel a lot better. Yeah. I'm glad. It was really nice to see you guys. I'm living now. I am now better.
All right. Literally, we are, in fact, going to get back to music now. So please welcome back, if you would, along with his band, Patrick Watson.
All right, cool. Thank you.
Hi, this is Nick Forster from eTown. If you want to stay up to date with all the performances, interviews, and behind-the-scenes footage, click the subscribe button. Thanks.